Howdy y'all, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Tomato Sauce with Bugateer. So what is this series going to be? Well, this series is all about how the average tomato can become better at the game. And what better average tomato to pick than myself? As you can see, I'm flashing up the stats here of how I've been doing in warships lately, and not too bad, but my win rate is kind of pants. So, what are we going to do? We're going to start off and we're going to analyze some of my bigger mistakes. And we're going to start off here with a game on straights in my Bogateer. Now, one of the biggest things you can do to get better at this game is to focus on what you did. It's easy to say, oh, well, RNG screwed me or my team left me to dry. You know, things happened, it's not my fault. Well, you know what? The truth is, usually it kind of is. There's usually something that you could have done to have a better game. And in this case, I'm going to show you. So, take a look at the map, take a look at the distribution, everybody, real quick. And it's time to get going. So, I'm going to move on to the A cap, try to support the rest of my team. This is not a particularly good map for the Bogateer, and it is actually the bad side as far as I'm concerned. I usually prefer tighter, mid-range kind of battles for the Bogateer, and this is just open ocean. Not what I really like, but we're going to make do with it. So what's this first replay about? Well, it's about situational awareness. It's pretty easy to remember to try to learn how to keep track of where the enemy team is. All right. But situational awareness is not just about knowing where the enemy team is, it's also about knowing where your team is. Because you can't control the other guys on your team. It's a multiplayer game. There's other people sitting at their keyboards trying to do the best they can. And they don't always do what you expect. So you not only have to keep track of where the enemy is, you got to keep track about where your own team is. Alright, so initially I'm pushing up here with the rest of the cruisers and the rest of my team on this northern side of the map. Looking pretty good. Moving ahead as a cohesive unit. I'm getting out a little bit in front. There's a smoke screen up ahead, so there's an enemy destroyer moving on the cap. So, not unexpected. Pretty much how this map usually starts to play out. They're sitting up there trying to use that little island as cover while the cap. Oh, here we go. Spot our first target, which is an enemy Phoenix. And prior to this, I'd had a couple run-ins with Phoenixes, trying to get footage to do a review of the Bogateer. And these little scout cruisers had been giving me a hard time in the couple games before this, so the Phoenixes have been kind of the bane of my existence. So when I see this guy out here ahead of the rest of his team, I'm going to have him. I'm going to take this guy out, and I'm focusing in on him specifically. Now, I'm keeping an eye on the mini-map, and I can see that the rest of the enemy team is lagging behind. This guy is pushed up pretty aggressively, and so I'm going to get my guns on him, and I'm going to tear this guy up. Phoenix does not have particularly good guns, so I don't really show him a whole lot of respect here, giving him way more on my broadside than I should, but I'm trying to get myself turned around. Headed the other direction to try to get a better angle. As you can see, I'm taking some hits. I'm taking some pretty serious damage. I'm definitely taking worse than I'm getting. And here we go. I just took a big hit, lost my steering. I'm on fire. This is not good. Now, I keep up the fire on the Phoenix, trying to do what I can to him. But let's see if you notice something going on the minimap. Yeah, that right there are the two big battleships, the main beef on this side of the map. Now, which direction are they headed in? Yeah, they've given up on this side of the map, and they are headed right now towards the south side of the map. And which direction am I going? Yeah, the complete opposite direction. Yes, my steering is knocked out, but I'm going in the wrong direction. Now, I'm taking some damage, I'm on fire, and I really don't want to give these guys the broadside of my ship. Right now, I don't really have an option. Steering's knocked out, so I'm just keeping up the shots, pretty much expecting that I'm going to die here. Those enemy battleships are just going to start shooting me up. And enemy Phoenix goes down. Nobody's that close to me, but I'm still very much detected, and I'm going to stay detected as long as this little destroyer's out there, so I'm going to try to take him out ASAP. Had AP in the barrels, so I get rid of it, and I start going to HE. Now, what was my problem on this match? And it's definitely not paying attention to where my team was going. I tunnel visioned in on that Phoenix, and I took a lot of damage. And then here, even after my steering gear is restored, and I'm only now starting to get myself turned around. Well, take that back. Minor course correction. And yeah, it's me and this cruiser out here all by our lonesome. This side of the map is pretty much done. And now I start to get turned around to follow out to those two battleships. And from here on out, the rest of the game was actually not that bad. I was able to finish this game with 2 kills and 38,000 damage done. But I can tell you, I would have done significantly more if I hadn't taken that early drubbing. Specifically because I tunnel visioned in on that Phoenix, and then I did not follow the rest of my team. When those two battleships started to get out of here, I should have immediately turned around and followed after them. Alright, so for our next little bit of humiliation, we're going to go here to the Two Brothers map with me in my New Mexico. Still my absolute favorite ship, if you didn't guess by the way I gushed over it in the review. So initially, I let my team know that I'm going to be heading towards D, and I head off that way at a stately 21 knots. I usually prefer D just because the island structure over there tends to make a more tight arena. You get closer ranged engagements. New Mexico is not good out in open water, which is really what A typically winds up being. So we head off towards D, and as you can see, pretty quickly we have a small group of guys. Looks like they're heading over towards A, but they are going to think better of it. And right now we're all just heading that direction. I'm seeing if I can get some early spots. You definitely, one of the things you want to do is you want to communicate with your team. At the very least, give people a heads up on where you're going, especially if you're in a battleship. Um, let people know where you're headed. All right, you never know. Maybe they'll pay attention. You never know. So right now we're all headed over there, and you can see smoke's going up. We're starting to see the first few enemy ships are definitely headed in that direction. But let's take a look down there at that mini-map. And as you can see, my team is all very much lemon training towards D. So, yeah, the lemon train's strong, but also the enemy looks to be lemon training in the same direction. So this ought to be interesting. So here we go. Going to go through this pretty quick because right now, not much is happening. Doing the battleship thing, taking some long range shots. Actually get a good slug in there on that Congo. But so far, nothing too wild. Bad destroyer drop. Keep up the shots, and as you can see, pretty much the entirety of the enemy team is coming this direction. Alright, nobody's even touched the ACAP yet. So taking those shots, and we're just going to keep sailing around here doing the battleship thing. As you can see, I'm up very far forward on my team. I'm definitely being aggressive. But that's what I do in the New Mexico. The New Mexico can take it as long as you're angled. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to lead my team by example as best I can. But here's where things start to go south in this particular game. And like I said, this is mostly about situational awareness of your own team. So let's take another look down at that mini-map. And yep, as you can see, a couple of our cruisers and one of our battleships is bugging out. They are out of here, and which direction am I headed in? Yep, the complete opposite direction. So, and here we go, back at it. So part of my team is bailing. They're heading back to defend the cap, which is honestly the smart thing to do. But as you can see, it's starting to get pretty hairy over here. There are no less than 5 battleships and a cruiser starting to come around this corner. And I am starting to run out of friends pretty quickly. Alright. I'm watching these guys come in, trying to take some cheap shots at these broadside battleships. And, whoa. I just ran out of friends. And as you can see on the mini-map, I am now the closest guy after that destroyer to this herd of enemy battleships. Yikes. So now that I realize that I have completely run out of other people for those guys to shoot at, I more or less turn tail and try to run myself away. But, if you listen to my New Mexico review, you can also see the ship is demonstrating one of its other attributes here. It takes a pounding. Uh, I had 5 battleships and a cruiser after me, plus this Atlanta, and another destroyer that's going to pop up. There he is. And I had these guys' attention. Half the enemy team was shooting at me. And I was still able to run this far, and I'm still alive. In fact, I get a little cocky about it. But nothing lasts forever, and I am definitely never going to get away from these guys. At 21 knot top speed, everybody over there is faster than me, and the inevitable happens. So, what was this episode about? Situational awareness. It is probably one of the key differences between a low ranked player and a high ranked player. Just being able to read that map and know where you need to position yourself. But not just position yourself with respect to the enemy team, you need to know about where to place yourself with respect to your own team. So that has been episode 1 of Tomato Sauce. I hope to see you all again, and hey, maybe next time my win rate will be just a little bit higher. Catch you next time.